one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For roll call, Mr. Mrazinski? Here. Mr. Hoag. Now, he informed us at the last meeting, at the end of the last meeting, that he was ending, but do we not have anything official?
Actually, he's allowed to stay on, so I was hoping he would stay, at least fulfill his term. But I haven't heard from him.
But he's not here tonight. We'll make that clear. Mr. Merlington? Here. Nabrowski?
Here.
Sorry. Mr. Nixon?
Here.
Powell?
Here.
And Mr. Conley's here. We also, of course, have our city manager and our city planner. Are we still substitute city clerk? Okay, wanted to make sure there wasn't a staffing change I didn't know about. Okay. And we have the minutes from the last meeting from November 12th that we need to look over. Hello.
There he is.
So I guess, yes, we should change for the record that Mr. Hoag is now here.
Sorry.
We need to look at the minutes for November 12th, 2024, and see if we can approve those. Page 3 in the packet, of course. If there's anything that we need to discuss on these before we approve them, just pop up, let me know about that.
I'll make a motion to approve the November minutes.
Do we need to look at anything or discuss anything? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving tonight's minutes, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Next we need to approve tonight's agenda. That, of course, is page 1 of your packet.
Have a motion
I
to.
make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Is there anything else we need to discuss on this before we adopt this? Hearing none, all in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please signify with aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We have an agenda. Next comes public comments. Those citizens wishing to speak on agenda and non-agenda items will be allowed a maximum of 4 minutes each to address their concerns. This is the only time during the meeting that citizens are allowed to address the planning commission. Please state your name and address for the record if you would like. So I'm going to offer it. Do you have any public comment?
I'm new here.
Okay, you don't have to. It's not a requirement. There's no quiz.
Name's Steve Cassidy. I live in the Pines over
Can
here.
you come to the podium, please?
Up to the mic, that would be great.
I've been speaking with this young lady here and the code enforcer Darla, just about our homeowners association and where to go with it. So from what I hear, it was going to be part of your agenda today, and I'm here on behalf if you guys have questions or anything, what our intentions are and where we're looking to go with it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't,
It's not on the agenda. I spoke with Andy, it wasn't at the last meeting regarding this.
Yep.
And I referred it to our city attorney. It might eventually be brought to you, but I'm not prepared to discuss that tonight based on no feedback from our attorney yet.
so,
Do you want the gist of the issue or?
yeah, and I mean, I know, I don't want to.
The agenda for other business, maybe have a discussion there.
Well, let's first just see if it's necessary. If it's just a getting us up to speed, and then there's still things still going, we can decide after we hear that whether we want to formalize anything. But sure, I'll recognize the manager.
Homeowners associations in properties north of the Pines, homeowners associations. The one that Mr. Cassidy's talking about, for some reason, way back when, I forget the year, one document was not signed by Dan Spitzbergen to the homeowners association. Acting homeowners association is defunct. The board treasurer, or the chair, the treasurer, not a group meeting regularly to discuss or collect money for the homeowners association. There's property that's being neglected, I guess you could say, in the area.
It's being maintained by a select few.
Correct, not the homeowners association like it should be. So we're trying to figure out, we've met with a couple people. They're trying to see what their options are to form a new homeowners association, transfer the property to them, but then what are they responsible for or not responsible for? We're trying to work all that out. I don't know what the solution is yet.
This is legally like a site condominium kind of thing, or where they had to have a,
Part of the site plan approved by planning commission way back when. But for some reason, documents weren't completed.
so, okay. Yes, they're all, go ahead.
So she hit the nail on the head. There's a few things that, there's three of us, oh, sorry. There's three of us that are kind of spearheading this to try and get either the HOA up and running again, or whether we can go to all these people that surround these common grounds and see if we can absorb the common grounds and debunk the HOA. But there's a lot of, like, we have a swamp over on the north side of the Pines. There's a pond straight across from me. There's a lot of things that the planning commission, when this started, it was supposed to be fenced in the pond. Well, I just got a quote for $20,000 to fence in the pond. You know, so there's a lot of things up in the air that the three of us who are willing to put in the work are looking at it saying, all right, look at these liabilities, look at these things that we're gonna be in charge of. Are we gonna be able to get the 50 residents that don't even know a homeowners association exists at this point to spend $20,000 on a fence? And we've kind of met with them and say, listen, we need a nice clean bow, something that we can go off of. So, and that's kind of why I'm here, so.
So it sounds like it's just a legally ambiguous situation at the moment that has to be figured out so that the city knows how to properly relate with what you have.
And the three, you know, majority of people are in favor of absorbing common grounds with understanding that it only serves purpose of maintaining the grounds. But everything's in your guys' hands when you figure out the legal action.
Thank you. And if that's, I mean, at the risk of not hijacking the meeting, I won't go any deeper than that. But we are at your disposal as we move forward, and everyone understands, you know, you're free to come to any meeting where we speak about it, and we'll hopefully figure out a solution that works for everybody involved. But I mean, that's through the city manager, through our legal, I'm not making any promises, just saying that we're open to have.
We have a good line of communication with her and code enforcer, and we'll continue that path, and hopefully it gets brought in front of you guys.
Okay.
So I'm not gonna stick around.
That's fine. That's fine. Thanks for coming. That's why I thought you might, I think if we waited till the end of the meeting, I didn't want to make you sit and watch all this if you weren't interested in it at all, but you're welcome to come whenever you like.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Seeing no one else in the gallery here, is there anyone online? So with that, we'll close the public comments and we'll move on to conflicts of interest or ex parte communication. Does anyone on the planning commission have any of that to report? Okay. Scheduled public hearings, there are none. Site plan reviews as well. I could sort of get used to that, although I know in the future it'd be nice to actually have new stuff built, but I'm good. And then moving on to other business. The first item under other business tonight is the master plan. So I see new stuff in the packet that looked interesting. Is this Mr. Moore's presentation at this point?
All right, so I'll just, so what you have in front of you is a draft set of goals and objectives for the new master plan. So as we work through this process, if you recall, a few months ago, we looked at a lot of the background conditions in the city, the population change, housing characteristics, utilities, natural features, this kind of thing. Following that, we administered the survey. We looked at the data a couple of meetings ago and talked about that. And then from there, what we do is we take the results of the survey, what we know about the city, working with Darla, and we kind of take a crack at goals and objectives. And the goals and objectives are really designed to take the input from the public and everything that we know about Cedar Springs and turn them into policy statements, basically. So they're broken up into several categories, right? So the first one is neighborhoods, and then downtown Cedar Springs, industrial, recreation, trails, communities, so on and so forth. Those are just kind of broad categories. We can make them whatever we want. Underneath then each of those categories, we have goals and then we have objectives. The goals are written as sort of this desired future state that sort of describes the city in some positive, desirable, status. And then underneath that are one or more objectives that are steps that the city can take that, if fulfilled, will help you to accomplish, that future state that's described in the goal. So, so basically we've done that, and I don't know how many of them we wrote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, a dozen, 13, 15 or so goal statements. Underneath that are more specific objectives. These will become a chapter of the master plan. And so really this is where we get into really talking about potatoes of sort of where you want to go from a policy basis. Mission as a city. So when we talk about some of the things that we talked about at the last meeting, making sure that we are connecting sidewalks, that we're improving sidewalks, that we have a vibrant downtown, that we have neighborhoods with a variety of, housing unit types and a variety of price points, that we're connecting sidewalks to the trails, that, all of these things that we've discussed and how we kind of want to see Cedar Springs in the future. We've tried to write this in here as sort of concrete things that we can do to help accomplish those things. So this is presented here for your review and discussion tonight. It's certainly not cast in stone, so we would welcome and request, frankly, your comments and feedback. And if there's something that you think is not adequately addressed, we would want to add that. If there's something that is not appropriate or something that needs to be, kind of fleshed out a little bit further, perhaps, now would be the time to talk about those things. So this is sort of presented here for your review and consumption and feedback tonight. As we move forward, we'll have a few more chapters to work on, as well, and eventually you'll get a whole draft. So it's not your only chance to work on this, but this is intended to be kind of the primary discussion topic for the master plan tonight. So thoughts, feedback, comment is welcome and appreciated at this time. I mean, would it help to just kind of walk through them, or, I don't know if I want to read them all, but.
Yeah, were you about to say something, Rose, or?
I was just looking at the 425 section, page 5 or 11.
Yeah.
Multiple family housing in the highway commercial district, which is out that way, which we're doing. And then the city will work to improve the visual appeal, functionality, and safety of 17 Mile and Muskegon Street, which needs to be done. I can certainly support that. Update welcome signage and add landscaping, potentially coordinate with the DDA, which there's a nice sign out there, and there used to have beautiful flowers out there. The garden club planted it, but garden club is no longer able to maintain that sort of thing. So if we're going to do flowers and all that kind of stuff, we have to hire somebody. We do the big garden by the library or the post office, but that is the extent of our capacity. The number of curb cuts along the corridor through cooperative planning between neighbors and the use of cross-access easements. I have no idea what that means.
So when we talk about, curb cuts are the number of commercial driveways on 17 miles. So what a lot of communities do is that instead of having each parcel that has frontage on a main road like that have their own driveway, you have them use one single shared driveway, and then you connect the parcels next to each other through easements, so you can go through parcel A to get to parcel B next to it that doesn't have its own driveway to that main street. So you sort of reduce the number of turning movements on and off of those busy roads. It's safer for people walking or people biking because there aren't as many cars pulling in and out of driveways that you have to look out for all the time. There are fewer of those types of intersections. So that's what we mean with that statement.
Be even possible to change what we already have out there?
Yeah, so not immediately, but as properties develop, or redevelop, you could require, for example, during site plan review, that at least one of those two property owners, establishes an easement across the front of their property or the back or wherever it makes sense. Depending on where they are, you may or may not be able to require them to close one, or if they have two driveways, right, you might say you close one and put a curb in. Other one is okay. Eventually, though, over, 5, 10, 15 years, as properties change, as people come in for site plan review, you can have them, each property owner can establish those easements to connect to their neighbors, and eventually over time, you have that connection is built in. And then during that process, you can start requiring people to close off those driveways. So it's not something that you would do in one big fell swoop. You'd have to do it gradually and incrementally over time as people come in and request site plans, as uses changed. At any point in any of those processes, you can, that gives you that touch point with that owner to require a change like that, if it's consistent with the plan and if it makes sense.
I can see where that would be a great asset as White Creek itself develops and more businesses come in there, because there's still a lot of empty spaces out there. Be much better to put that down in the first place.
I mean, ideally, like if we think about, there's a few commercial parcels near the apartment complex on the north side of White Creek. If those develop, whether it's all at once or whether it's, over time again, as each one of those comes in for a development, you can say, hey, you don't need a driveway because your neighbor has a driveway, and you can, as they come in, that's when you establish all those things before they do anything.
And,
Yeah, that's absolutely a technique that you can do.
and we have one all already set up like that. The carport store on the south side of the road is set up like that. Like the old O'Reilly's is set up for where their parking lot driveway ends into that next lot.
Yep. Yeah.
So that next partial, you could do that right on it now.
Yeah, and so in some cases, there might already be an easement established on that one. And so when the next one comes in, you just have them do the other half of that basically and make that connection. And then you have fewer cars, fewer turning movements, fewer conflicts, fewer crashes, hopefully. Fewer pedestrian and bicyclists.
I think we have to put our foot down on the sidewalks. We have to have sidewalks out there.
And that's basically point 3 on there, the non-motorized infrastructure.
And get the road pushed through. Yeah,
It's coming.
Rolls is road, getting to the apartments. You put all those apartments, you gotta give them people direct access to downtown if you want the businesses to really benefit from those apartments. Give them access to downtown.
And a better road than Pine Street. That Pine Street is a joke for a heavy traffic.
On a red flannel day when Main Street's closed, it gets 3 roads to get out of town on, not just 2 roads. Gives you that option to.
In interest of keeping the conversation moving, this is great stuff. I'm not trying to stop it, but there's a lot of stuff here. So first, I think I would ask, like Rose pointed out a specific thing that she saw in there. From your reading before you came here tonight, or what you're scanning now, is there anything in here that you said, that doesn't sit well with me? Is there anything like that? And or is there anything that you might want to add that you didn't see in here? We can certainly go line by line. I just think that would take quite a while.
It seemed reasonable to me. There was nothing in it that stood out, but I didn't do a deep dive where I sat down and really put my brain behind it, to be quite honest.
Should also celebrate more of the fact that we are on the crossroads of the White Pine Trail and the North Country Trail. It's an important asset to us. A lot of people did a lot of work to get it here, a lot of work. And it's important that we advertise that, bring it to people's attention that it's here and it's important.
8. That's where they talk about it,
Recreations and trails.
Mm-hmm.
partnering with entities to do that.
Talks about leveraging, the one goal, leveraging the presence of the White Pine Trail to attract residents and visitors to the community. But you're speaking more towards the actual junction of the two trails, right?
Yes.
So that we really should be adding the North Country Trail in there as well. And making sure that that's included, if people understand that also runs through our community.
Promote that. Yes. Goes right down Cherry Street.
Into the field.
Oh, it's beautiful back there. It is beautiful.
I know, that's a great comment.
The goal is, and I don't know how it's gonna happen, is to get across the expressway. And after that, it's clear sailing. So
Do they have that going down 18 mile now? Is that kind of the way around, or they,
it'll be in the future once they get across the expressway. But I don't know what the plan is. I just don't know.
You get ideally the North Country Trail you're talking about would go across the expressway?
To go under it or over it, or around it or something. And then there's all kinds of ways to get to the hookup to go north.
Check with the trail folks and see if they've talked about that. I mean, we've worked with them in the past and their offices are just in Lowell, so it's not like it's far.
Community building development team has worked on it, well, all these years. That's how we got it to Cedar Springs in the first place, because they kind of wanted to go around us. And the White Pine Trail and the North Country Trail had to work together just because of the natural fact that there's rivers and creeks and roads. And we got it. And now the goal is to get it over the expressway and the rest of the way north.
I had, just one note on the industrial development section. So, plan would be to extend West Street to 60. So, heavy trucks down that way to get out of town, or
That would be part of it, right?
Employees of businesses that work there. Southern access.
that's the one thing I was thinking about, is just big trucks coming through, and
Yeah.
don't want them in a downtown area necessarily.
And right now, I mean, they have to come out and they have to make basically a left turn on Muskegon, which is busy and full of traffic, and it's just not the place we'd really love to have a lot of big truck traffic going through with what we already are expecting that artery to handle.
Okay.
So, and of course, the option for potential expansion moving south of our industrial base, if we have that other path out of there, because we have all of those parcels over there that the city owns that we're trying to sell to increase the industrial zone there. So eventually you can see kind of a natural progression of let's put that out there and have a way to feed it.
Okay. What was the other street, we were looking at?
Cherry Street.
Cherry, okay.
Yeah, Cherry
That's
Dead
what it
End.
was, and you,
And you know the new hotel?
Yep.
So right on the side of that hotel is where the Cherry Street easement would
okay,
continue out. And that would provide another east-west way to get, that it wouldn't put all the traffic down Muskegon.
and it would go all the way to White Creek.
Yep. I mean, theoretically, I mean, that's what, this is all future planning. There's obstacles in the way, there's issues, but, you know, we can kind of recognize this is a direction that the city needs to go. But we all as a, I don't want to dictate that, we all as a group are helping to envision what could be coming 10, 15, even farther years out as part of this process.
Yeah, and that's been in the master plan for what, 25 years, maybe?
No,
No, we went from a dirt 2-track to a great big road.
other things we should look at on here. I agree with Matt said. I looked at this and I was impressed. I was happy with a lot of the direction this led. But I don't claim that I saw everything. So if other eyes saw something, just like as we brought up here, that's welcome.
I think it encapsulated a lot of our conversations we've had, so good job, yeah.
One thing I hope it clearly says is a formal truck route. Someday we can encourage CS Manufacturing to go south on their property to
To Cherry and then out. Is that in there? I can't remember if I saw that.
Truck route, about planning the truck route.
So we have under, yeah, so we have, an objective about it. So I think I've only done a couple of them and they were in townships, not cities, but in the past they have adopted an actual truck route ordinance. So there's an ordinance you have to adopt that designates certain streets as truck routes and then you can sign them and, you know, enforce it basically, yeah, like force trucks to use those routes to get around. So they're not going up and down your residential streets or whatever. So that's a future step.
You keep them coming down Fifth Street, cause I'm used to the house shaking. If it goes by a house, we fall asleep.
So which one are you talking about turning into a truck route?
CS Manufacturing, they're coming out Maple to Main Street. We need to stop that. But without a formal truck route, we can't enforce. to
Okay.
make them go South to Cherry, over to Fifth.
Cause they're coming out behind the bar. Okay.
And along the park, you got music and kids and stuff, and you got semis coming along, the dust is terrible. No need for it. Their plan was to take the trucks to the south, but
Hard to adapt.
We'll see.
Okay. Anything else before, I mean, have you gotten what you need from us then on this?
Yeah, I think, again, you'll eventually see this again, so, time permitting, next month, we'll start to look at the future land use map. We'll start to map out different designations for different types of, you know, commercial and residential development and all that. We'll probably draw in some of these street connections that we're talking about as well, so we can physically see where they're going, and what connections we're making, even though I think you guys sort of intuitively know this already, we'll put them on a map so it's clear as well. So that'll be for the next meeting. And then, you know, we're thinking by, you know, later in the winter or early spring, we'll have a complete draft together for you guys to review and we'll.
Okay. All right. Well, then I guess we can move on to the next item under other business. And that would again be probably the dual items of B and C, both referring to the short-term rental law, the ordinance and the itself, and then of course the zoning ordinance that would have to go with it. Are items B and C. And we kind of handled those together last time because it's the same concept. We probably will have to have separate motions when we actually go through them. But just to kind of bring up everyone up to speed that wasn't here, we had a couple people missing from the last meeting. In my impression, and I would ask the other members of the commission that were here to correct me if I'm wrong. We had come to a general consensus that the 5 house limit was acceptable to everyone that was here at the time. We hadn't come to a complete consensus on which zoning which zones we would allow it in. And we wanted to table it because we knew we had a couple members that hadn't weighed in specifically on that. And we have full attendance tonight, so this is a good time to put this to bed, hopefully, and be able to move forward with it one way or the other. So, is there anything from your end that would like to add to that before we dig into this? Okay, so I guess the big question here is, we had some people that were, well, I don't want to speak for everyone else. So let's instead look at the zoning part, because that seemed to be where we had the hang up. So I think that's, okay, yeah, that's page 19. As it's written here, and we know that this has been moved around a little bit, from where we started to where we are now. As it's written here, the zoning ordinance is written that they would be allowed in the R2 and the B2. We didn't have a consensus necessarily on whether that was the appropriate zones. There were some that were open to including other zones. There were some that didn't necessarily want to include other zones and had concerns about that. So I'm going to step back a little bit because I don't want to put my foot into it and put my thumb on the scale or anything like that, and just kind of let anyone who has an opinion one way or the other on that present their opinion. We can go back and forth as necessary and come up to either a conclusion or a vote, whichever is necessary. Okay? So where should we put these things?
Matt, you have been very helpful to me for considering these zones. I've really appreciated it. And it's opened my mind too.
I'm just an avid user of them, and I've used them in all different parts of towns.
Very helpful to have somebody out there doing that and why they're doing it and understanding that. I can see where they could go in many other zones, not industrial. There's no houses there. I don't think, maybe one. I could see it going into the mixed use, R2, R3, R4. Like to keep it out of R1. But I guess that would be a matter of opinion and other folks, only because we went through such a time with R1 and rentals and how the traditional neighborhoods were overrun with multifamily homes that were remodeled, and it was tough on those folks, and that's just my opinion. Otherwise, I think they could go anywhere that.
Everyone's all yellow. We're looking at the zoning map.
Yeah. Yeah, my only concern with the R1 would be the parking and the amount of cars. I mean, like at my house, I don't have a problem with R1 if they're not parking in front of my yard and having multiple cars there all weekend long. You know, the parking thing I think would really have to be addressed that.
Is there a parking ordinance on like where to park for just normal houses right now? I've never looked at it, so I don't know what's in there.
Every house is required to provide a minimum of 2 spaces. And some, I guess, I can't speak to whether or not they're allowed to park in the streets. Does the city allow street parking?
Ooh, not during the winter.
Okay.
From,
So during the summer, there's also street parking available for people in front of houses, and that's not to stop. I mean, someone could have if they have a long enough driveway and they have room, they could potentially, fit 3 or 4 cars in a driveway, but they're required to have at least 2.
Is that something we can legally limit on these short-term rentals, is the required to park in the driveway? I mean, if that's a concern, because I think you had that concern, somebody did, I think last month too, about people parking on the street. I mean, if that's something we can just put in an ordinance, that's part of the short-term rental thing, that one's done. I mean, the other concern was, noise. We already have a noise ordinance, so we know that one's gone. Right? So that's why I said, I don't want to recreate the wheel, something that we already have an ordinance on. But if it's something that we can say, hey, if it's a short-term rental, they're required to, after a certain time, I get like people visiting, if you're up here visiting family, and you might just have something, but like after 10 o'clock at night or something like that, But also,
Off street.
But one way to word it might be that the person who wants to apply for a short-term rental license has to show that they have on-site parking, not street parking. For a certain number of vehicles.
adequate on-site parking for the number of visitors at the short-term rental. Yeah.
Draft right now requires a minimum of 2 for the first 2 bedrooms and then 1 additional space for each additional bedroom after 2. And then it also says parking on the grass, in the lawn, or on the street is prohibited. That's what the current draft says.
Yeah.
Cause I know on my, is parking allowed on all streets in town? Cause if you were parked on Marie Street in front of my house and the ambulances were going to the nursing home, I mean, nobody parks out on our street.
Allowed unless it's signed otherwise, isn't it?
Cause that'd turn my road into a 1-lane road if you were parked on the street.
That might be something that needs to be addressed about.
Yeah,
Is
cause I
your-
mean,
should your street be signed? It's for parking.
cause if you parked on our street, it's a 1-lane road then.
I know it's very clear on the streets around my house, you can only park on this side of the street, not on that side of the street and stuff like that. There it is signed.
They're parked, right? I mean, yeah.
Thing I was going to say was, like with the R1, that backs up to the B2. And we do have a lot of, parking lots that have parking. So I didn't want to take away from the R1 because you could have a house that's, possibly close to Sue's that has, where the, parking lot is across from Sue's. So we do have parking lots and stuff for people to park. So that is another option too, that they could park their vehicles in those lots and walk if they had to. We're not a big city.
Right. That's what's nice about being in the B2 or the mixed uses. There's a lot of parking lots in the area.
I personally have no problem with R1. I voiced that
Yeah,
last month,
I
so
think-
I still don't have a problem with that. We have ordinances, I think, that cover some of the concerns we have.
Yes.
So that's my personal view is I don't want to limit the people that have ownership in those areas to be able to, especially with us only allowing a maximum of 5 permits. It's not like we're gonna have 50 of those in there, right?
That brings up another question though, about the 5 permit thing. Can one owner who owns 5 properties swoop in and take those 5 permits? Under the way it's currently written.
Probably.
That's not good then.
Maybe there are some communities where that's a problem, right? Because big companies will buy up a dozen houses and short-term rent every single one of them. So yeah, I mean, these are typically done on a per property type of basis, not a per, like a per owner basis, I guess. So yeah, theoretically, somebody could do that. And I'm not sure, it's more of a legal question, I think, is if we can say that the only one individual who owns property can, like, 1 license per person, basically. We can probably do that, but that
Okay.
feels like it's something that,
Isn't that where that term investor or owner comes into, like Holland has? They have the investors and they have the owners.
yeah, I mean, I mean, it's hard to say, I mean, a lot of those are owned by like an LLC or something. So they're behind the scenes, there might be, 20 members of the LLC for all we know as investors. The LLC owns the property. The LLC has someone who would act on their behalf, whether it's the owner or whatever, the president or something. But yeah, if there was one LLC that owned all 5 that owned a bunch of property and then swooped in on day one and came in and just plunked down 5 registrations and got their 5 permits and demonstrated compliance, and they were all done, that would potentially preclude anybody else from doing it. I don't know if we can stop that. I would have to ask somebody who knows more about that than me.
And do we have more than one in the city right now that's actually active Airbnb or VBRO?
That are being offered on Airbnb last I checked.
Excuse me.
And one of them was in the, I think, R2 district, if I recall correctly. It's like adjacent to the trail, I believe.
One in the mixed use.
Mixed use, yeah.
One of those 3 people, I'd surely want to know that there's only going to be 5 permits issued. And where did the 5 come from, if you don't mind me? I mean, where did the 5 come from?
Just, yeah, the planning commission, as we talked about it, suggested it. I think it's, a lot of communities look to balance. You know, they want to allow for them, but not let them potentially overrun the community. You know, we also have other property owners to think about, like in Grand Rapids, the entire city, they limit, I think there's only 200 licenses available for the entirety of the city of Grand Rapids.
Okay.
So it's a way to sort of protect the integrity of the existing neighborhoods as best you can.
Demographics, I mean, they showed us the statistics where we have a very large percentage of our properties are actually rental properties right now.
Oh, okay.
It
I
just-
was just curious.
It's so, you know, we have the potential to be adding to that, and I think, and I think some other people also did, that it might be a good idea to just be cautious about how many we do until we see where this leads.
Because we have 2 of them out on Pine Lake where I got my cottage, and they're not on the water, they're off the water in the little, on the west side of Pine Lake. But both those houses, those 2 houses that are Airbnb or VBRO are probably now within the last year that they're being offered are probably the 2 nicest cleaned up homes out there, you know, I mean, cause I mean, they look better than all the rest of the houses that are around them.
On the cage for 6. Airbnb shows 4 of them right now. 3 of them are right downtown and 1 is.
Is one the new house that's behind the brewery?
Yes, that's the White House.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the.
And that is that R1 or is that still mixed?
That was we figured that that's a very,
So we have to do mixed use, because we know that the White House is being used as that.
Here you go.
Yeah,
We have to tell them that they're not allowed to do it anymore, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
It's our job, right?
I don't want to.
What's that place called for?
It says 120. Yeah.
And then above.
I'm gonna bring all the cross discussion back, and I'm guilty of it myself. So but I also recognize it's very difficult to take notes and minutes when there's 7 conversations going, and that's not fair. So, because this is a, public record. So, lot of interesting things coming up, but can we do, if we have something we want to bring out to the rest of the group, can we do it one at a time and so we can all be legibly heard here? Okay. Consensus then. Can we get back to that? If I did a straw poll, maybe that's a way to do it, about how, which zones we should be going into. Trying to figure out the most efficient way to do that. So, maybe we'll narrow it down. We'll start from biggest to least. So if you are interested in having some kind of restriction on the zones and not just allowing them to go anywhere, I don't know, raise your hand. Maybe we just kind of figure that out.
I do think we need some, but.
Okay. Okay, so we're there. Now.
Yeah, yes, sorry.
I'm sorry, and I will do it on I'm not, right now, I'm just trying to like narrow this down, but if you need it for official purposes, I can do a.
Wanted to make a note, straw poll.
I can do something orally or make it clear for notes as necessary. Okay, Then, how about let's go from the other direction. With the current, what we have on the screen here. Are there anybody that thinks that the R2 and B2 as it's currently written is too restrictive? Three people that think it's too restrictive out of the seven? Or do you're also agreeing?
I agree.
Okay, so 4 out of 7 think it's too restrictive. Okay, so we're somewhere between everywhere and R2 and B2.
We're
Well, now-
back to the beginning.
Now we can just pick them off and just see where we get a consensus, and then we can kind of move forward. So mixed use, I hear that come up a lot. Is everyone okay with or are most of us okay with the mixed use?
I'm okay with mixed use.
Universal on the mixed use?
Yes.
Okay. Cool, that worked, you got it, all right. Any others that someone would like to champion?
R1. I really think we need to add the R1 in there. It limits the city. Our city is small.
Yep.
To begin with, so it's an easily walkable city. If we need to, we already have stuff in there that concerns parking, which is the concerns that's been brought up to this group. So we have that handled. Noise ordinances with too much parting. We already have that addressed in this group. So if there's a noise complaint, that can be addressed. I mean, not that we want to have the VRBOs and Airbnbs govern us, but they also have anti-partying rules that are part of theirs. So, I mean, I think those two are doubly handled. So we have a noise ordinance and it's not allowed by them. And I just don't want to limit our citizens because we do have a requirement that they have to live close by. So it is going to be somebody that's paying taxes for the city. So we have tax-paying people, not just from people from California buying up Cedar Springs and making money here. Those are people that will be locally with this, if I recall correctly. So I'm all for letting our citizens that own property here, if they want to rent.
And you said that there were 4 currently on
Yes.
Airbnb.
Yeah, and all of them are none of them in our R1 right now. But I don't want to restrict the R1. I mean, the other concern we addressed too is that there's a limiting in housing. Well, we are building a giant apartment complex and there's more houses that we know that are going in. So I think to me, that argument's moot.
So
Agree, because that's only 160 units and there's a lot of families that don't have that option of being able to buy a house in this insane market. And then, like I said, how much of the city is already rental? So then you're adding, like I said, that element of the neighborhood stuff starts to break down when you add more and more Airbnb across the board. I've gone to other cities as well and stayed at Airbnbs, but again, I have to ask myself at what cost to some of these neighborhoods. They don't get to have that bonding where kids can just run kind of freely. You kind of have to be a little bit more hesitant. So I guess I disagree. I think that the housing shortage and the neighborhood, keeping that heritage and that kind of integrity is important to me. So I just don't agree with the R1.
The over there where all the condos and the big development over there with the housing, they're not very far apart. They don't have a lot of street room. They don't have a lot of parking. I just wouldn't want to see that go in that area. For somebody to Airbnb out a house there. Maybe.
Aren't those R2?
Not all of them.
Yeah, it's a little bit of R1 and R2.
Yeah, there's
Yeah, if I
a
remember,
mix.
it's correct, and R3.
I'm not sure why that one's R3. There's no R3s up there, is there?
Some condos or something up in there.
Brand new. That's the,
New stuff is R1. It's the R3 up there. Condos up there, I think those are all single family homes.
It might be made as a condominium association, just the way they have it done.
Yeah.
I have a buddy who lives in a neighborhood, but they're technically a condominium,
Yeah.
just the way they have it
I
handled and
was in
zoned.
the site
Yeah.
condo too. The R1, as long as we're covering the parking and everything like Matt says, I don't have a problem with R1. If all our bases are covered, and if there's only 5 allowed in the city to begin with, and there's already 4 that's not even in an R1, we threw 1 or 2 in R1, what's it gonna?
I'm kind of in there. I agree with you as far as I don't want relentless expansion of more rentals. And I'm kind of hypocritical because I own one. But at the same time, practical number we're talking about, it sounds like it's only gonna be one or two houses.
But
Mhm.
that's what you're saying now, but you guys also had said, let's do this as a test run. And so then what if you do the test run? And then all of a sudden, like you said, you're getting more and more demand from owners that they want to get on the deal too. And then, like I said, that's where my concern is, and that's where I kind of, if this is a test thing, then test it in the other zones. And then if you want to expand it, then expand it. This is my thought, so.
And that one or two houses, for me, is so inconsequential, I could go your side, I could go the other side, that's the point, it's just. I'm fine keeping it in a smaller zone as part of the test, because the test, if it's a test, we should test it in a limited area. I can see both sides, on that. That's where I'm trying to be there, so basically I'm passing the buck and letting other people decide. So,
I'm kind of agreeing with what you just said as a test, keep it smaller area.
Well, I think, yeah, I just think one house in the R1 is not gonna break this town, I would hope not.
So this might be something that's just solved by a vote. It just, at some point, we gotta do that.
Right.
And before before we move into that, are there other zones that we haven't discussed yet that someone thinks it's important that we bring up here as an option?
B2.
B2 is already
Is
on
that-
there.
that's part of it?
Yeah. And R2.
And R2.
And we added mixed use.
With those.
Are there any houses in the White Pine overlay? I don't think so, but
No, that is just, that's like the mixed use area. That's where all the businesses butt up to the White Pine Trail.
And industrial. Not really even well shown on this. The white line overlay is something that we did to make it so that businesses along the trail through here were allowed to have customer facing things towards the trail.
it's got that little border on it.
Line, you know.
Sorry.
Just going back to that real quick, in the R1, it's not stopping, you know, I know the views that you guys got on it, but it still doesn't stop any homeowner from turning their house into a rental, right?
Single family,
Yep. I mean,
like, but not, short term.
if I sell my house in 2 years and move out to the lake, I can still turn my house into a rental full time. It's still, you know, people could be renting for 3 months at a time.
Or somebody could rent your house and rent rooms out in it. That happens a lot too.
So probably taking a vote then.
Well, do we need,
It'll be up to council to finish with the frosting on the cake, won't it?
Recommendation to council. They could
Exactly.
knock everything we're doing down. So,
Exactly.
so I mean, I don't mean to make you feel like this is futile. We do have, this is our role, but, this is one step in the process. Okay, so, would someone like, we need to probably break this up into a couple motions, obviously, because there's two different things on here. We have the zoning thing and we have the ordinance itself. Have we made any changes or suggestions that would present a problem with the ordinance as we already have it? Is that good to go in everyone's mind?
so. As long as I think the one thing I'd like to address is the zoning part, cause I think we don't have R1 added in there. I think that's the only one that. And I don't think mixed use is in there, right? I was trying to find it really quick. So we're missing mixed use, and I'd like to add mixed use and R1. I know R1's contentious right now, but I'd like to just put that up as part of.
In the end,
Almost in
we
here.
have item B and item C. Item B is just the ordinance allowing us to have short-term rentals. And then item C is saying where we can put them. So if we go in the ordinance on the agenda,
Allow short-term rentals with a maximum of 5, that's how it's worded, yeah. And I think we've covered that.
is that, so,
I did not look at this again this month. I did look at it last month.
okay. So, if just so we can do it in order, so it kind of matches what we have here. I know we were discussing this all collectively, but so if we're gonna start putting motions, if we could, we do it in order. I want to find the original on here for the law. Is that page 12? Yes. Page 12 in the packet. There is a proposed ordinance for us here that if we were all good with this, someone could make a motion on that and we could knock that out of the way and then go to any amended motions we might need to make the changes in the zone we just talked about.
You talking about that right there?
Comfortable with the first one, with the,
Talking about using that as the motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
12 through 18.
Everyone's good with 12. We can stop discussion on that. We can just
Yeah.
put it out and move on to the zoning thing.
So as we've been talking, the only couple of things that I've adjusted in the general law ordinance are a couple of references to single family dwellings, which we're gonna take out because if this is in the B2, those might not be single family units, right? Those might be second story apartments or something instead of like a detached single family home. So there's 2 instances or 3 maybe where we are just referring to a dwelling unit instead of a single family dwelling unit. And then the only other change is that on section 8-123, subsection B, I have a note in there that you requested that the owner be at least 18, do you have to be at least 18 years of age to register the unit with the city as a short-term renter? So under application, we're gonna modify that to say to register a short-term rental, the owner, who shall be at least 18 years of age, shall register the short-term rental following the procedures outlined in Article 4 of Chapter 8 and so on and so forth. Fairly just kind of minor, I would consider them to be non-substantive, but in the interest of giving you the correct.
So I'm trying to, the poor person actually has to make this motion. I want to make sure that we've got everything clear so that we're making the changes in a way that we can do it, because I don't think any of us love making these complicated motions. So this is item, that last one you just talked about would be section 8-123, B. B. We would want to change the language. So to register a short-term rental, the owner
Must be 18.
being 18 years,
Yes.
so we need to add in the phrase being 18 years old or above. And then, so I can get you the other point. You're saying that basically everywhere in this ordinance where it's, or in this proposed ordinance where it says single family dwellings, we just change that to dwellings? So,
That is only in the definitions, so under section 8-120, subsection B. That's section 8. The definition for owner and the definition for rent or rental are the only 3 instances in which that term appears, so we're just gonna adjust that.
suffice for us to say collectively wherever it says dwelling, we change it to dwelling unit? Okay, I will try to take a stab at this.
thank you.
So I move to amend the City of Cedar Springs Code of Ordinances and to amend Chapter 8 to add a new Article 6 to titled Short-Term Rentals. I'm just reading it as it is here. With the following changes, that in Section 8.123B, we add the term being 18 years old or above after the word "the owner." Between the words owner and shall, we add the term being 18 years old or above. And that also throughout the ordinance as presented here, all instances of the phrase single family dwelling be changed to dwelling unit. Is that sufficiently arcane and technical enough to pass muster?
I'll second. Yeah.
Any discussion on that? Wait, all in favor is all in favor of the motion as presented, please signify with aye. Aye, all opposed? Okay, so the motion carries. Now we'll dig into an amended motion for, the rental zone. And that proposed motion starts on page 19. So if anyone, and I'm gonna throw you all to the wolves on this. If someone wants to make a motion with the ones you want, put something together. And then we'll vote it up or down.
Unless they're not an ordinance, is that, those blanks are ordinance number? Is that what we're looking at? And that's the previous one we just put in, or is that the fact that this one doesn't have a number yet?
So, yes, the city clerk will assign a number when it gets onto the council agenda, so here I think it might be helpful, since the main point of debate seems to be whether or not it should be in R1, that maybe that's the straw poll that gets taken first, and then from there you can craft a motion on the rest of it.
And is to help, I probably should have said in my prior motion that we're recommending this ordinance to the city council, and I didn't really state it that way. As long as everyone understands that what it is, we can, if you want me to redo it, I will, but that's what we were doing. Huh? Okay. That's how I wanted to have the meeting, have it written, and that's what you understood when I said it? Cause you seconded it, and that's what everyone understood, and we can move forward? Okay, good. When you make your motion on this, you should probably say that we're recommending this to city council.
Like to see the mixed use zone added to this. I don't know how.
It might be best if we did a straw poll about R1, just to see where everybody is. That seems to be the point of contention. Is that something you'd be willing to do for kind of show of hands, and then it would help us move into the ordinance?
I'm willing to do whatever gets us to the end of the meeting. How about that?
I think it'd be helpful if we did
Yeah,
a straw
I
poll
think-
on R1 to see where everybody's at. That would actually help us decide if that's something that we need to add to this ordinance or not. Otherwise, it's just moot for us to make up the proposal without knowing where we're at, because
Good idea.
Since I know this is contentious and we're not gonna get unanimous, then I'm just gonna start at one end and move down. Or actually, you know what, to be more official, let's pretend I'm a professional tonight. Let's go in the official order of the roll call as we have it on here. So I'll start with Mr. Merzinski. How are you pro or con, adding R1 to the amendment or to the
Con.
motion?
Con.
So one against, Mr. Hoag? Mr. Merlington? Ms. Naprowski? Mr. Nixon? Mrs. Powell? And I honestly haven't even kept count, but I'm gonna say con.
it's 3-3 tiebreaker.
I'm gonna say con. And live with what we've got. Okay. Once we add
So we'll just add
mixed
mixed use to it then.
Yeah, then I'll make a recommendation for this ordinance to amend chapter 30. I'm gonna read that top spot, chapter 30 zoning of the code and ordinance of the city of Cedar Springs for permit short-term rentals by rights in the R2. We would like to add mixed use, correct? And single family and two-family residential districts and in the B2 central business district.
I'll second that.
Yeah, the only thing I added was mixed use.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the city clerk, you were able to catch what we've got here?
Only thing we're adding is mixed use. Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Thank you, Matt, for, enlightening us on what it's like, the Airbnbs. I'm just so protective of our R1 neighborhoods after what we've gone through, and I appreciate your input and your help.
Okay, all in favor of the motion as presented, please signify with aye.
I,
Aye. All opposed? Okay. I'm not gonna be unhappy to see that gone.
No.
dance fight afterwards, right?
Which means the city council will turn around and send it back to us. Okay, open discussion for issues not on the agenda. Correspondence I see in the packet, of course, we have the 2024 calendar. I know we adopted a 2025 calendar. I'm assuming that'll be coming up soon. And upcoming projects, anything there?
Bringing every week. I just, you know what, and like 10 are gonna be submitted and they're all gonna be on the, the one agenda, but I keep telling, I'm helping people. You need all this documents. When you're ready, bring it to me. We'll pass channels, and when it's ready, it'll come to you guys.
We'll have, I think, one on the agenda for January, I believe. Right? Pretty sure.
I don't have anything yet.
We got,
Oh, yes,
For
yes, yes. The
the
marijuana.
yeah, the marijuana
Um,
on White Creek.
Yes.
So we have one probable site plan for January, but that's for an existing building.
Oh, okay.
That's
I
a
know.
grow facility. that's
Yeah.
open.
Yeah, they're looking, there's a new owner and we haven't gotten into the application yet, but we have received one. So that should be on the January agenda.
Staff comments, city manager?
Just wanted to, pass on a couple things. We had a zoning board of appeals meeting on November 26th. The board denied a front setback for 197 East Elm. There's a 30-foot front setback. They felt due to the wetlands on the east side of the property, this is how they proposed to position a home, and the zoning board said, nope. You have options to meet that 30-foot front setback, so they denied it. One upcoming is a construction board of appeals, December 17th. We have this scheduled. PCI, our current building inspector, condemned a mobile home in Northland Acres. So December 17th, construction board of appeals will hear that scenario. Other than that, a lot, like I said, my phone rings literally every week with a new, can I do this? Can I do that? Other than that, happy holidays.
Any comments from the city clerk? You? Item C, planning commission members, there's a discussion on the makeup of board members, and now I think I have an idea what this is about, but Ms. Falcon, tell us.
So at the end of the last meeting, Mr. Hogg had mentioned he sold is in the process of selling his home. Can you stay on the planning commission? I copied the wording right out of our charter for the membership for the planning commission. Passed it on to Andy just kind of for thoughts and comments. We don't feel there's anything in here that would stop Matt from staying on the board. Just, if you're willing to stay, you're welcome to stay. You're on your term. If you want to resign your seat, we would just need something in writing.
We have enough seats here and our voices, and I do love this town, so, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
but still close.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just in Rockford.
Oh, okay.
I'm in Lake Bella Vista now.
City, so he still has a vested interest in the town, so.
Oh, yeah, that lot beside you.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
So, but it's in the charter that way. This really isn't a question for us up here. This is just,
Informational. Yeah,
And I want to make sure you guys are comfortable too, knowing that I'm not living here anymore. Yeah. I mean, I can walk outside if you guys need to.
Do we need a straw poll?
I had a vote on a bonus yesterday. We had a board meeting. We had to kick the chair out for that one. So I don't care if you gotta kick me out for that.
The zoning act actually, or the planning act allows for, I think, for a city of your size, you can have 2 planning commission members who are not qualified electors of the city serve. So we've floated that idea in other communities and they've said, that'd be fine, but our city charter does not allow for that. So that's why Darla and I kind of got our heads together and said, well, if the charter doesn't prohibit that, the act wouldn't prohibit it either. So I think that would allow you to stay on.
Out to you to him, and I didn't see a response, so I wasn't sure what the answer was.
It's come up before, especially when we had, you know, problems attracting enough people to be on. And it's, I know in prior, you know, just to be fair, in prior instances, there's been kind of a consensus, or maybe not consensus, but a lot of voices saying that it's a bad idea having someone who doesn't live in the community being on the planning commission. Just, that's what I've heard in the past. So I don't want, if someone feels that way, I don't want them to feel like that, they don't have the option to be heard.
And
It's
if you do
safe.
have a resident that is interested in joining, I would gladly let them take my spot. So if that comes up or somebody's interested in joining this planning commission, please have a conversation with me. Yeah, I don't want to hold up a resident spot because I'm holding this position either.
And at the same time, I don't want to have a qualified person who is dedicated time to the city, who is thoughtful, who has put as much effort into this as you have, and continues to own property in the city, to leave on the technicality if we don't have to. So, not my call, but as long as I'm not hearing off with his head, let's continue forward with that. And thanks for staying around.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, man.
Certainly don't want you to feel like I'm just trying to be,
I just want to make sure residents have a fair shake since I'm no longer technically a resident, yeah.
I'm glad that we're not going to, have to continue with a decreased board, because it's been
Yes.
rare that we've had a full 7.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so if we can avoid that for a little while we shake things out, I'd be cool with that. Okay. So, that all on the planning commission thing on the selection? Okay. So, although this is normally an opportunity for planning commission members to give their comments. So it's not written in here at this one, but I wanted to make sure that we got our planning commissioner comments in here before we just bounced over them. So, anyone, any comments?
I'd just like to say that the celebration of lights and the tribute to Jerry Hall the other night was just amazing and wonderful, and I really appreciated all the folks that worked on it, and I believe it was Perry Hopkins who began that, hopefully a heritage tradition, so it was really, really heart touching, all the wonderful things that were said and done.
Okay, all right.
Thank you. Other comments? We had a rare thing here tonight. We didn't have complete consensus on something. We normally do.
And that's just
And-
fine.
And, I'm glad, I agree. I'm glad that it isn't a rubber stamp. I'm glad to hear all of the opinions. And that we had this discussion, because that's important. That's necessary. So thank you for everyone for being willing to stand up for what you believe in this. And if so, and working through it. So, thank you. Do we have a city council representative anymore? Really? We don't really?
Not tonight.
So I guess we can move past that. There isn't any more. And then, report of the planning consultant. Anything else from Mr. Moore?
Nothing further. Merry Christmas.
Well, with that, we're adjourned.
Now, Miss Darla,